it's Robin Riley for Bello's Designs. Today's tutorial will be showing you how to use the Retiform technique on a card. Before we get started though, I would like to invite you to join us in our Facebook groups. We have the Bello's Design Lounge, which we showcase all of our creations using Lavinia stamps. And we also have the Bello's Designs a la carte page where we showcase stamps from Sweet Poppy Stencil, Cardio, Nellie's Choice, That's Crafty, and more. So join us on both of those pages to see some wonderful creations. So let's get started with this Retiform technique. It's a really nice technique that's been around for several years, and it looks a lot more complicated than what it actually is. Let me show you the supplies that you are going to need to create this card. Starting out, you will need a white piece of card, which I like to use a card that is 300 GSM weight. The measurement will be 4 3/4 inch by 4 3/4 inch. The background of the card today is on a dark brown piece of 65-pound weight card, which measures 5 inch by 5 inch. The stamps that we are going to use for this technique, I am going to be using for the sentiment. Let's see that you make sure you can see everything here. The sentiment comes from the Sweet Poppy Friends stamp set. It says nature is the art of God. I'm using Cardio stamps from Seasonal Branches, the Majestic's Tattered Poinsettia stamp set, Favored Friends, and also the Majestic Classic Christmas stamp set. Cardio makes such a nice variety of small stamps, and those tend to be very perfect to use with the Retiform technique. The inks that I will be using, I will use VersaFine Clair Nocturne for the sentiment only. If you look at the card again, you'll see some shaded areas. Those areas will be created with Distress Oxide weathered wood, along with a makeup brush for the blending. The other VersaFine Clair inks that I'll be using will be Shady Lane, Pine Cone, Twilight, and Golden Meadow. Other tools that you will be needing will be an acrylic block of some sorts. This is an old, very old, rectangular shaped acrylic block that I've had for many, many years. I have recently started using the acrylic pegs that Cardio makes. This particular one is called Shorty. It is a 30 millimeter diameter, short acrylic peg. And the stamps from Cardio, being that they're so small, fit very nicely in the area provided. And like with all acrylic stamps, very easy to see through for placement. This is a 25 millimeter acrylic peg from Cardio also. Just a tad bit smaller than the Shorty that I'll be using for smaller stamps. You will need a type of sticky notepad. I'm using a rectangular shape, but square shapes would work just as well. I will be using some water that I have in a distress sprayer, and I will also be using a cloth, a microfiber cloth, to clean off my stamps. The type of glue that I like to use is the Art Glitter Designer Dries Clear Adhesive. It is the one and only glue that I ever use. All right, let's get started with this. Starting with this piece that is the white piece, which remember is 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. I'm going to stamp my sentiment first. For me, this is a little unusual because I tend to stamp my sentiments last when I create a card. But for this particular type, this technique, it's wise to start with your sentiment stamp first. I will be placing this in the lower right-hand corner. Nice even press, letting the ink soak into my card, removing and cleaning it off. Now with the sticky notepad, what I want to do is I want to cover that sentiment. I want to make sure that the sticky part of this paper is adhered nicely to the card, nice and firmly. I'm going to begin with the ink, the Weathered Wood Distress Oxide, a little bit on my blending brush. And I'm going to gently make a line right along the edge of the pink sticky notepad. This is just going to define a very clear area for my sentiment. I'm using a light hand because I tend to be heavy-handed, and I would much rather add to my ink to get the proper color that I would like. I'll give you a peek. There's a little bit of that. All right, let's re-adhere this. I'm going to take another sticky notepad, and I'm going to begin creating my areas. They will all be triangular shaped. I want a nice defined point at the base of my card. I'm going to add another piece to continue this straight line. Now these shapes are all up to you. You can add as many or as few as you like. You can even change the shape up a little bit. That is all up to you. Now using the Weathered Wood ink again, I'm going to add another section to my card. Keep in mind you would like a variety of shades with this ink color. Just creates a lot of nice interest. Removing this entirely, there's a nice shaded area for me. I will create the next section. Here I'm going to create an overlapped area. Again, this is up to you. You don't have to overlap. They can be all very well defined. It's really how you like it and how you want it to appear. When I remove this, you'll see what I mean by the overlapping area. Here you can see another triangle that appeared by simply overlapping. I'm going to now create an area here. Using my ink lightly, I'm going to blend a line. Matching the points at the bottom of the paper because I want that area to be very pointed. Adding another line. Eventually, the sticky paper, the adhesive is going to become weak. That's when I'll replace it with a new sheet of paper because I don't want my brush slipping under. I want a small area here. This time I'm not going to overlap. So I am going to block this just for my purposes because I do not want an overlapping area. And a final area will go from this corner to that point. Okay. Let's remove all these so that you can see the sections that I will be working in. Now, this part is up to you. There's a lot of white space on the edge, You can leave that if you would like. Personally, I don't care for it. So what I'm going to do is just add a little ink to my brush, and I'm going to drag my brush down the edge along the entire width of the card, rotating, dragging my brush, rotating, continuing to drag. Really no need to add more ink at this point. And the last side, I'm varying the pressure so that I get some more uniqueness to this. Let me hold this up closer for you to see. We'll give it some time to focus, and you can see the edge that I created just by dragging my card. Again, strictly for interest, no other reason. Now let's get creating each of those individual triangles. So back to the sticky paper, I'm going to adhere the paper as closely as I can to the defined area that I'm working on. This is the area that I'm going to be working on first. So using my paper, I'm going to block off all of the areas around this particular triangle. So now where I'm going to be stamping is strictly within this triangle. The first stamp that I will be using will be a branch, and I will be using the VersaFine Clair Shady Lane ink. Making sure that I have sufficient ink. I'm going to place this very randomly. It all will not appear, meaning the entire stamp won't. It will be very random. Now, when working over a line like this, make sure you press firmly enough so that the stamp gets right up against that line. Again, randomly pressing my stamp. You could, if you wanted, do second and third generation stamping. It's all up to you. Whatever you would like. All right. That's finished. Let me wipe things off and remove these papers. Now you can see one section is complete. Moving on to the next section. Again, remember, cover up the best you can the surrounding areas. Matching that line up again as closely as possible. Now I'm going to be using one of the acrylic pegs. Since this is such a small stamp, see if you can see it here, the bird. I like using these acrylic pegs for this purpose. All right, Twilight is the color I chose for the bird. Making sure the ink is all over that bird, I am going to stamp again in random areas, rotating the stamp as I go. Again, that's just for interest. Pressing firmly, letting the ink soak into the card, and I'm going to get one more wee little piece up here in that corner. All right, now let's remove and see how we did. All right, next section complete. I am actually going to switch out for some new paper now. I'm getting a little too inky there for my likings. All right, let's go up to the top of the card, and I'm going to block off the next section with clean paper, lining up. And the next one that I'll be using will be this branch. Carte just makes the sweetest stamps, I think, and a lot of them are extremely tiny. And I really believe they were almost meant for this type of a card, because the smaller the stamp, the better the outcome is in a Retiform technique. Just my opinion. So randomly, I will be placing the branch, going in all different directions. And I think I'm going to add one more little piece over here just for interest. Clean up a little. All right, moving on. You can see how this is growing. Now, something to keep in mind when you are doing this. You don't ever want to have sections with the same colors, meaning, as you can see, I have green here, blue, then brown. I wouldn't want another green here, nor would I want another brown here. You want to keep rotating through the colors, mainly to create that interest. All right. My next section, as I fill this in, we'll be done with the snowdrops. I really like this stamp. It's such a cute one, and gosh, we're getting close to snowdrop season. They'll be coming out shortly. Thank goodness. I'm using the Golden Meadow VersaFine Clair. Now mine's a little contaminated, so you possibly could see a tad bit of green show up here, but it'll be okay if it does. All right, pressing firmly. I'm going to add these randomly in the entire section, rotating my stamp so that I get more interest in this area. All right, that's good, I hope. Moving on to the next section. Let's take a peek. All right, that's coming along nicely. Okay, lining up. Lining up the next section. Now in this area, I chose to do this branch, which I absolutely love that. I wish I knew what tree that's from, which pine tree, but it's really pretty. I'm using the Twilight ink for this section. Pressing firmly along that line so that I don't get a gap. Let me sneak in a little bit here. And I'm going to sneak in a little bit down in this corner. And I will sneak in some here. All right, I'm going to switch out some paper. Getting a little bit inky here. Don't want any accidents. All right, just 3 more sections to go. Now, let's say, and I've been here, believe me, if you look closely, you would see there is some small areas that really I did not get a good enough press up against the line. I don't think people are that picky that they would notice it, but if it bothers you, you could always fill in those areas with a colored pencil of the same color so that it's not as noticeable. Personally, I'm not going to do that. I don't think it's that bad of a miss on my part. But if it's something that would bother you, that's an easy fix. Okay, using the pine cone and the leaf stamp. Let me tell you, I told you it's a little bit of a learning curve when using these acrylic pegs. Make sure you have the ink on. When I first started doing it, I didn't always get a good coverage of ink, and I would sometimes hit the edge, and inevitably it would bounce off of my paper. So practice. before you start doing an actual card with these pegs. There is a tad bit of a learning curve. All right, placing these very randomly. Get one big one right here in the middle. Oh, that was a total miss, but that's okay. Again, it's kind of hard from this angle. I tend to stand up when I'm using these to make sure I'm in the right placement. All right, that'll work for me. All right, 2 more sections to go. Let me clean up this area so I don't drag any ink anywhere. Again, take note, the colors are different. No same colors are touching up against one another in the same area. That's probably the biggest mistake you can make, so keep that in mind. In this section, I'm going to use the cute little berries and Shady Lane. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. I hit the edge of that, so that's something you want to stay in tune to. Try not to hit that edge. Randomly again, going in different directions. One more little set peeking out down here in the corner. And then one more section to go. I do have a tad bit of a corner peeking out here, so I'm going to cover it. And the last stamp that I will be using will be the leaf stamp, and I will be using the Golden Meadow color of VersaFine Clair. Again, keep in mind, my Golden Meadow is a tad bit contaminated with some Shady Lane. There was a Joe Rice slip, for those of you that watch Joe. Let me finish this off. Just a little peeking out of that corner. And there we have it. There is the Retiform finished. Just a fun technique to give it a try. It's just, you know, it's kind of tough, I think, the transition between Christmas into January. It's tough. It's not a lot of fun making cards and designing cards. So this is one of those go-tos for me. So the last thing I have to do is add it to the background. Let me do that quickly. All right. Centering it the best I can, pressing down. Now, looking at this card, you may want to add some more interest to it. You could add Nuvo drops. You could add some gel pen highlights here and there. Again, that's all to your liking, whatever you would like. And remember, you can make these triangular shapes as large, as small as you want. No two can be the same. They're just so much fun, and it's just something different to do for a change. Let's take a quick peek at the original and my new one. Not a whole lot of difference, but yet it is different. The sizes are somewhat different of the triangles, but it all works. So have fun doing this. Please post these. Remember, if you're using Lavinia stamps, post it in the Design Lounge. If you're using any other stamps from Bello's designs, place that in the a la carte lounge so that we all can see your Retiform technique. Thanks a lot. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.